is up, everybody? Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Tuesday, November 23rd. Frank Stampfl here as always. Scott White is off this week, enjoying some well-deserved time off with his family. So I started thinking, this is our only podcast this week. No Scott. I had to go big. If you play fantasy baseball and don't know today's guest, it's time to get out from underneath that rock that you're living under right now. Somebody that I'm a big fan of, been listening to for years. You've read his work on Fangraphs. You've listened to him on the Sleeper and the Bus podcast. Welcome in Paul Sporer. What is going on, man? Nice to virtually meet.
Frank, it's great to virtually meet you, man. Thank you for that intro. That's awesome. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you listening. I can say the same right back. Been enjoying the show quite a bit. So great to be on. Thank you.
Yes, we were talking beforehand. I mentioned, look, I've been listening to you since the days when Eno Saris was on the podcast. Love what you're doing with Justin. I know Colette hops on there every now and then too. Mm-hmm. So really big fan of your work there. Happy to have you on the podcast. Of course, everyone can follow Paul over on Twitter at Sporer. That's, whenever I say your name, I feel like I'm not like pronouncing the last part of it. It's like Sporer. Yeah. You follow him on Twitter at Sporer. Today on the podcast, we've got some news. We'll talk about the latest news items. We now have 13 NFBC drafts in the books, and it's time for some way too early ADP takeaways. We've got a few ADP battles as well. We'll talk a little Thanksgiving. It's Thanksgiving week. I've got some dishes I want to talk about. We'll do a little turkey versus ham, some side dishes, pies, get to all that. And of course, if you follow Paul, then you know he's big on Twitch. This guy's a big deal. He plays MLB The Show, plays OOTP. The guy's streaming on Twitch. I just got MLB The Show this year, first time. It came over to Xbox. I have an Xbox. I suck. So I need Paul to help me out. And anyone else who's listening who plays, I know I've had a few people reach out to me saying that they also play MLB The Show. So hopefully he can help all of us. Maybe you don't need the help. I definitely do. But we will get into that a little bit later on. Let's just start with some news and notes. We had a re-signing. Anthony DeSclafani back to the San Francisco Giants on a 3-year, $36 million deal this past year. Finally gets out of Cincinnati and has a really strong season. If you looked at his splits going into 2021, he was great outside of Great American Ballpark. So we kind of thought, all right, well, maybe there is some sleeper appeal here. Turns out to have a really good season, 3.17 ERA, 109 whip, 16% K- walk rate, the second best of his career, 11% swinging strike rate, the best of his career. ADP right now, 232, just ahead of names like Tristan McKenzie, Casey Mize, Aaron Savale. Sporer, what do you think about, do you want me to call you Paul or Sporer?
Either one. People call me Sporer all the time. It really doesn't bother me.
I think I'm going to change that. I'll go back and forth. But what do you think about this for Anthony DeSclafani going back to the Giants and this ADP range that he's around right now? Does it make sense?
Yeah, I think both are a great fit. I think the Giants re-signing him is a perfect fit. I love when like the narrative comes together, right? You kind of paint the obvious narrative of, we'll get him out of that ballpark and get him in a place that maybe can mitigate the home run rate a bit. And maybe we'll have something. And that's exactly what happened. He goes to a park that is much better for him. And frankly, you could have massaged this ERA down quite a bit more if you wanted to play it cautiously with him and not play him against the Dodgers. His 2 worst starts of the year were against the Dodgers, 2 2/3 in both of them, 10 and 4 earned runs. And I'm going to guess that there's somebody out there, at least in a mixed league format, that played it just like that. And they played it perfectly. Now, they would have missed a couple of decent ones at the Dodgers, 5 innings, 3 runs, 6 strikeouts, 4 2/3, 2 runs. That doesn't really hurt you. But if you just played it straight up, no Dodgers, you'd have massaged a sub-3 ERA for sure from Anthony DeSclafani. And I don't see any reason that he can't continue to be this kind of guy in San Francisco as long as he stays healthy. That's the biggest factor. But I think that's built into the price. So you don't really have to count that against him. That's why he's so cheap.
Yeah, and he doesn't have to be a must-start pitcher, too, at that ADP, right? So exactly like you just said, you play him in the right matchups. Don't play him against the Dodgers, most likely. Don't play him at Coors Field.
And just be convicted to it. Like, even if if you're going to do it, just commit to it. He might have a great start against the Dodgers. You'd be like, darn, that would have been nice to have. But if you just commit to it, I think it can pay dividends if that's the way you like to play. If you like a guy that you don't have to sit, then maybe don't get him because he has to go to Colorado too, which is where his home run issue can crop back up as well for DeSclafani.
Yeah, I was just about to say, maybe you don't play him in Colorado, but at the same time, if they lose Trevor Story, I don't know. This offense could be really, really brutal. But we'll see.
That's true. That's true. And we've seen that like we love what Coors does for guys, but it doesn't really make guys out of thin air the way we kind of pretend. And I guess pun intended, because the thin air is what drives that park. But it doesn't. You have to have a measure of skill. So if it is a bunch of slugs, it'll be a better offense because it's in Coors, but it might not be scary. It might just be kind of a regular upper middle of the pack offense that you can play guys against, but maybe not DeSclafani just because of his home runs.
Right. Apparently, the Giants are also close to re-signing Alex Wood and are also talking to Alex Cobb, which I think
this all makes so much sense.
It would make so much sense, right? Like they just took Kevin Gausman, who's also someone who relies heavily on his splitter. They made look. Kudos to Kevin Gausman. I don't think that the Giants just completely made him, but like had the big velo jump and he was awesome. Cobb was good this past year with the Angels. So if he winds up with the Giants, that could be just a match made in heaven. So we'll see if that actually comes to fruition. Next up, we have Charlie Morton, no longer wearing a cast on his surgically repaired right fibula and is now sporting a walking boot. His early ADP, 82.3. That's SP 27 off the board. Scott has Morton SP 15 in his rankings. So quite a bit of a disparity there, where if you're drafting off those rankings, you're probably going to wind up with a lot of Charlie Morton and Sporer. I do like this price tag quite a bit for Morton, coming off a year where he was SP 10 in points leagues, SP 12 in Roto. Assuming that he can stay healthy again, which I guess you can't really do because he's older, but
yeah,
he seems like a steal right now at his ADP.
He really does. And, with Charlie Morton, I think some folks are going to play it where if I'm a year too early and he's good again, that's okay. I'm willing to give that up in the market. And that's part of what's driving this price down, which I totally get. You're not going to go broke betting off of 38-year-old starters. Staying off of them is what I'm trying to say. Sorry. Just avoiding them as a general rule. If they get to 38, you say hands off. Again, it takes conviction to do that, because sometimes you see a Max Scherzer, I think it's about to be 38, or Verlander certainly will be above that, I believe. But if you just get rid of those guys, you won't go broke. That said, there's nothing in Morton's profile that predicts anything is coming. Now, when you are 35 plus, injuries can just come at an instant and it can be done. That is the risk of, like, it's not just a month or so. He just hangs it up, but the skills upside is there. And so I'm willing to bet at that price on Charlie Morton. I actually have him closer to that price as far as his ranking, but I'm fine with that. And I understand why Scott has him high, because the skills are so solid that if you can get even 150 innings, which he's eclipsed each of the last 3 full seasons, obviously absent 2020, then you should expect some pretty good numbers from Charlie Morton.
Royals prospects, first baseman Nick Prado and catcher MJ Melendez were added to the Royals 40-man roster. And I think there's probably a good chance we could see both of them this upcoming season in 2022. Marlins outfield prospect JJ Bleday and Cardinals first base prospect Juan Yepez. I should have looked up how to say his name.
That's
Yepez?
correct.
Yeah, Yepez. They were both named co-hitters of the Arizona Fall League, and Rangers pitching prospect Owen White named the pitcher of the AFL. And of those three, I'm thinking Yepez is the only one that we see in the bigs next season. Maybe Bleday. I mean, he's played at Double-A, but he really struggled in the minors this past season. I guess there's a chance.
He did, but go ahead. You finish. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, like with Yepez, the Cardinals likely going to have the universal DH. I think that obviously can help him. He's bounced around. Like, I don't know that he's a good fielder. He's played some first. He's played some third, a little bit in the corner outfield. I was just going to say, I know that you were at Arizona Fall League. So were there any names that we should know for 2022? If you have anything on these three that I just mentioned as well, you can also throw that in there.
I kind of wish that Yepez would have slowed down, because that was my guy. That was my big takeaway guy that I was really impressed with. But now he's on the he's kind of on the landscape a bit, being a hitter of the AFL. So it's not so hidden. This looks like a true Cardinals guy too, where they kind of take somebody that you don't understand quite how it works. Like, he doesn't look like a great body, not great defense, but he just hits, and he hits a lot. And I think he's a guy who can come up and just rake for them, especially if they do have that DH. I'm a Bleday guy. I can't quit him. I'm still really intrigued by him. AFL is a finishing school. The fact that he doesn't have AAA, I don't even think it's that big of a deal. I think he can go down and get 20 games there. If he kind of carries over some of this work, I mean, obviously he hasn't shown anything. He lost that big development year in 2020. That's huge. There is some swing and miss, particularly with velocity up, and that is a concern. But I still like the power, and he put it on display at the Fall. We got to see him crush a couple home runs, which were impressive, including in the Fall Stars game. And I think at 24, he needs to touch the majors this year, or else there's some real trouble with this path. This comp is more of a guy who was drafted high and then kind of really pushed his stock down in the minors before popping up. But Jonathan India vibes come across a little bit with JJ Bleday in that I wonder if when he gets to the majors, it kind of clicks for him. Maybe this is the jump start he needs at the Arizona Fall League. Again, he does have issues. It's not that there's nothing wrong with his game that was causing him to struggle, but I do wonder if he might kind of be ready and maybe just didn't have the full commitment that he had to have in the minors and is better than what we've seen in high A and double A.
I like the Jonathan India comp too, because he walks quite a bit, near 14% walk rate this past season at Double A. The batted ball profile looks pretty good too. You probably want to see some more line drives. Don't love the infield fly ball rate, especially for prospects. But yeah, look, we'll take the AFL, what he did in AFL, and see if he can build off of that. I think when I was listening to the podcast that you did there, you mentioned another Marlins outfield prospect, I believe, right?
Cam Meisner.
Cam
Yep.
Meisner. Yep.
Who was also really interesting and is basically kind of positioning himself as like a cheaper version of Bleday. He doesn't have the hype. He was a first rounder as well, but 35th pick, not 5th pick. I can't remember exactly where Bleday was, but he showed his power at the Fall League quite a bit. He was a guy that I took away from. I actually had 2 trips to the Fall League this year, one in October and then one in November for the Fall Stars game. So getting that extra look at a bunch of guys was really cool. Saw Meisner continue to hit for power, only hit 205, so that's not going to jump off the page, but 7 homers, a 513 slug. That's really showing the pop. I really took that away. Still, swing and miss issues similar to Bleday. That's why I say he's kind of a diet Bleday in fantasy because you don't have to pay nearly as much, but you might get the same thing. So instead of paying for the name brand of Bleday, if you're worried about him and share some of the concerns that we've seen, go get Meisner much cheaper. You're probably getting about the same thing. I have hopes that Bleday can push his level up a bit, but for now, it looks like those two could be pretty similar, high power, low batting average types that should be able to stick in at least a corner. Bleday might have center field possibility.
For anyone who watched the Fall Stars game, by the way, too, you might have saw Sporer in the background with our buddy, the Welsh, who we've had on this podcast many times. Anytime someone would strike out, you see these two goons in the background doing their strikeout calls, punching people out. So that was really fun to watch. I saw a few clips of that on Twitter. So good stuff there. The Tigers, you're a big Tigers fan. They seem to be interested in every shortstop on the market. Which one do you think they actually wind up with, if they do?
I think it's got to be Correa. This is something that, again, I don't say this to like a brag, but I was calling since before last year. Like it was so obvious. Again, I wasn't predicting something that's crazy. It just fits, right? This is exactly what they need. A premier shortstop. They don't have one coming. They're a young team on the rise. Shortstop is obviously a remarkably important position. How often do you get an opportunity to get a guy on the right side of 30 of this quality? That's what we're seeing with these free agent classes like this one and the ones that are coming up. We're going to see a lot younger guys than normal. A lot of times free agency, you're buying like 29 and higher, often guys in their 30s. We're seeing that age down because guys are coming up sooner. And this is the fruits of that. And a guy like Correa is going to be 27. You got Hinch there for the obvious link. They got to pay them. Like it just makes too much sense. Insofar as these big deals go, I know the review on a lot of these I think like $150+ million deals is pretty negative because the tail end is always going to be bad. There's kind of like a built-in bias against them just due to their length. But you're paying for the early years, and the next 4 years of Correa should be excellent. So should it be for the Tigers. They're opening a window. It makes way too much sense for them not to go out and get their franchise guy. Correa should be the guy. I think Story, Seager would both fit. Baez, I hate being negative on him because I really enjoy watching him play and everything he does defensively. And when he's on, he's awesome at the dish, but he's just not always on. And that volatility of his plate profile will not age well unless he kind of learns the strike zone a bit better. It's not that walks inherently make you better just by virtue of being taking walks. It's that you don't swing at balls and get yourself out. And that's something that Correa does a lot. He reminds me of somebody like a Carlos Gomez who burned brightly, but then was gone pretty quickly in terms of an effective player. I feel like that's what Baez is going to turn into. The other three guys, I think they have a lot more stable hitting profiles, and they can be a franchise guy for the next 4 to 6 years. And then the extra, 3 to 4 years on the back end of it, those will be a coin flip, and you might get lucky and get somebody who ages well, or you get a dud and you start moving him third, first, DH, whatever.
Yeah, I think Correa to the Tigers makes a ton of sense, right? Like this whole situation, like AJ Hinch has done this before. He took over the Houston Astros. He saw them basically turn their entire organization around with younger players, right? So now he's doing that again with the Detroit Tigers. Scott and I have talked about quite a bit already. The Tigers from 2019 to this past season, that's the last 2 full seasons that we've had, 30 win improvement from 49 to 79. That is massive. Like you don't see that over, that short period of time. So it looks like they're ready to take that next step here in 2022 as well. A few more smaller moves I wanted to mention. Brent Honeywell traded to the Oakland A's for cash considerations. Aaron Loop signed with the Angels on a 2-year, $17 million deal. And according to Jeff Fletcher, who covers the team, this is the first pitcher the Angels have signed to a multi-year deal since Joe Smith back in November of 2013. It is November of 2021.
Wow.
This almost seems impossible. They didn't sign a single pitcher to a multi-year deal in 8 years. That is just mind-boggling. But
that really is. I mean, that's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
It explains a lot about them, though, too.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, it makes perfect sense for where the Angels are at. I mean, hopefully Noah Syndergaard can turn it around for them. Pedro Severino signed with the Brewers on a 1-year, $1.9 million deal, and Jose Quintana to the Pirates on a 1-year, $2 million deal. Let's get into early ADP. 13 drafts done so far over at the NFBC. That's the National Fantasy Baseball Championship. For anyone looking to get involved, right? Like you might be intimidated by it. Paul and I were talking beforehand. They have lower price points now. They have best ball leagues for $5, $10. They have NFBC 50s. I believe those are just draft and hold leagues where you have $50, whatever, and you don't have to make any moves throughout the course of the season outside of setting your lineup. There's no waivers, there's no trades. You just set your lineup. So might be intimidated by the whole thing, the whole scene, but like, don't be. I mean, there's lower price points now as well. I wanted to start off with starting pitching and just ask you, it seems deep. Time will tell if it actually is. But it seems like we saw the return of the middle class in 2021. Maybe it's thanks to the ball. Maybe, people using sticky stuff for half the year, just inflated numbers for the entirety of the season, whatever it might be. I know that ERA did take a pretty big step back from June 1st on, which makes sense because usually there's more hits, there's more home runs in the summer anyway. Yeah. But I really you look at the 75 to 150 range for pitcher. I mean, it seems so enticing. There's a few names there that we're going to talk about a little bit later on. You have the Shanes from Tampa Bay there. Ranger Suarez is in that mix. There's a lot of enticing names in that range, but even outside the top 200, there's Joe Ryan, Hyunjin Ryu, Jordan Montgomery. Outside the top 300, John Gray, who could wind up somewhere else. Eric Lauer, surprisingly good. Even Zach Greinke. You don't even have to be a Greinke fan. His ADP is 330. I mean, he's basically cheap. He's basically free. So I want to ask you, is starting pitcher deeper than it has been in recent years? What do you think?
I mean, that's the general feeling right now, but I feel like we say this pretty regularly. Maybe not every year, and likely not last year because we had no idea what to expect coming off the COVID year and what to take from it. But part of it, I think, is the proximity to the season. I think the freshness of what we just saw and us kind of being intimately familiar with the entire pitching pool kind of has us, it creates this false sense of security because we know the breakouts at the different levels. But like 30-40% of the top 100 will probably bust, based off of what we're projecting. But we project positively off of what they just did. And I think sometimes we don't fully take in the downside of pitchers, just how much they break and everything. So I don't know that it's necessarily all that much deeper. Because we always really start to fall in love with these middle tiers. It just feels that way comparatively because the last time we said it was probably after the 19 season because last year was so weird.
Yeah. I think what's so interesting too is I think why we had this return of the middle class where there was a little bit more parity at the position was because of the ball, which we couldn't, we knew that they changed the ball and that They said that there was going to be less home runs and that they were de-juicing the baseball. We didn't know the extent of how much it was actually going to change the entire landscape of the game. So you take that into account, the fact that we had the sticky substance situation. It was just like a weird year all around.
It really was.
2021. Look, this is impossible to predict, but what do you think happens with the ball next? Because they're like talking about pre-tacking the baseball. They did it in the AFL. Apparently they did it in the Olympics as well. So this is something that they've experimented with. I guess there's a chance that they could start the season with that going into 2022. If it changes again, like, this could affect the pitching landscape, but it's just so hard to tell like how it's going to change it.
That's the thing. Like, we can't know because we don't know exactly how what the process is with the ball.
Right.
I could see a carve out for some kind of substance allowance in the CBA, like you said, like attack, and they agree on a certain level, and that's on the ball, and it changes things. But the ball is always an X factor because we have no idea, and they just lie. They just lie about it, and we'll say no, it's the same, and it's being it's being studied by other people that have the wherewithal to know the differences, and it's very clearly different. And so it's kind of always an X factor that we just have to, I guess, kind of, hope for the best with it. Really hope it doesn't create things too drastically to where we overdraft pitchers. If anything, we'd like it to pay better dividends on the pitchers that we drafted.
Let's stick with pitching and talk about closers on the rise so far. Hendricks and Josh Hader at 35 and 38, respectively, in ADP. Again, there's only been 13 drafts, so anything could change. But last year, they were also the first two closers being drafted at picks 57 and 58. So, I mean, we're talking about, 20 to 25-ish picks apart from where they were last year versus this year. And we got this question from Brendan Tooma on Twitter. I know he does work with Fantasy Pros, and he asked, can you talk about Hader Hendricks going so early? Is this because it's early in the offseason due to the 15-team roto format, which is a lot of the draft champions, draft and hold leagues that are going on right now? Is it a shift in strategy or all of the above? Does the idea translate to more, quote, standard 12-team leagues as well?
I tend to think it's kind of an all of the above situation and includes 12-team leagues. I think it's the ever increasing lack of the reliable go-to guys. There were 62 guys with at least 5 saves last year. That's the most ever, up 10 from 2019. Meanwhile, 9 guys with 30 saves is the lowest since 1988, which is still pretty early in the years of dominant closers becoming a thing, because like 86, 85, 87 are all there too. Like, so you start to see it slowly go up there. So, I mean, that's a different era too. That's a completely different era when relievers just weren't as important, or in a completely different situation. Relievers are much more important, but teams are realizing that they want to deploy their guys at the best situations for them, not just keep the best guy for the ninth. It's the right thing to do. It's the right way to manage. The league's a copycat league. They're seeing teams like Tampa Bay do it and have success. They're starting to emulate that more. It's hell on fantasy, though, because of how difficult it is to accumulate saves and the assets that you have to hold sometimes. But I think that's what's driving up these prices. I don't think they're going to go down. I think they have a better chance of going up, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm right there with you too. And I don't know about you, but I'm not going to be the person to pay that price tag. I don't fault people for wanting to do it. Look, you get 2 of the best relievers in the game. You get ratios across the board. You get strikeouts. You lock in 30 plus saves, or at least that's what we think you'll be getting there. But I mean, I want to try and get one of the top, I guess, 7 to 8, 8 to 10 maybe in that 5th or 6th round range. But using a 3rd round pick, man, it's like the opportunity cost is just too much for me. What do you think?
I'm open to it. I drafted Giovanni Gallegos very high in a mock draft, or in an actual draft for the NFBC draft and hold when we were in first pitch Arizona. And it was pretty high. It was the 3rd round, super high. But I'm really bought in on him. I think he's going to be the guy. I wouldn't normally take him there. I didn't know if he's going to make it all the way back, though. I thought people started eyeing closers, and I was like, dang it, because I was thinking, I want to say Hendricks and Hader were both gone already. So I was like, I'm gonna go and get Gallegos here. He's kind of my next guy up. I think you can kind of get it back. You're talking about the opportunity cost. It's going to lead into the next thing that we're going to talk about. I think there's a big depth in the tier we're about to talk about that makes it okay to jump up some pitching, because guys have to fall for all this pitching to be up. We already know that starters go up. They've been going up and up lately. And in the NFBC in general, they tend to get pushed up as sort of a general versus the consensus of home leagues, let's say. And so now you're throwing in closers into the mix. That has to push some hitters down. And I think we start to see that flex itself here in the hitting tier that we're going to talk about, even though you have a little trepidation about that tier.
Yeah. So let's talk about hitters up at the top. I think we get about, 70, 75 picks in, and then it seems like it starts to slow down. I mean, it happens every year. Obviously, the elite hitters go up near the top for, obvious reasons. They're going to give you some power, some speed. If not one of those things, they're obviously going to contribute batting average. Obviously, we're trying to get, 5 category production as much as we can early on. But right around pick 70, we have someone like Jazz Chisholm. And don't get me wrong, I really like Jazz Chisholm, but I mean, that seems a little bit aggressive, man. And then, we're seeing Bobby Witt now. This is like the first time we've really seen a true elite prospect being drafted this early since I've referenced Ronald Acuna. His ADP the year he was coming up, 2018, was 100 on the NFBC.
Roberts was around there too, right? Luis Robert. Because he signed the deal.
Yeah.
Now he was probably safer than Witt because he signed the deal. So we were knowing that he was going to play. But yeah, with Witt, I will say this about Chisholm and Witt. They're still kind of outliers in this group. I don't think they quite fit here with some of the other stability. Like Correa is at 94, and obviously I just talked him up. I'm excited. Hopefully my favorite team signs him. But I think Bregman at 92, he's finally priced properly. Brandon Lau at 88. So I think there's still, like, just right there, there's some guys to show that that are going after those two. They're pushed up because of speed. Witt's kind of the shiny new toy. He also has a 36 min pick there. That's doing a lot of work in these 14 drafts. I'm going to be eager to see how Witt goes as we get deeper into drafts, at least in the winter. It'll change maybe in the spring if it's looking like he's going to break camp. But I think without word that he's going to break camp, I think it'll start to go down. I think that 36 is holding it up quite a bit. Jazz is in the 50 to 114 range, so a little bit tighter range. But then I think it goes really deep to the point where you start to get to Willie Adames, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., Yohan Moncada in the 140 to 150 range, Avisail Garcia, Conforto, Gavin Lux around 200. They're a cut lower than Chisholm and guys around there, but that's closer to me, that talent, I believe, than a 125 pick gap would normally indicate.
Yeah, so you kind of answered the question, I guess, but I was just going to ask, like, given the way that things are kind of shaping up right now in the hitter pool, a few names that you mentioned, I think that they're going to be contributors, no doubt about it. Obviously, not names that contribute speed, but I think that's what, for me at least, it lends me to grabbing maybe 3 or 4 elite bats in my first 5 or 6 picks. Whereas like last year, I was leaning into starting pitching and the volatility of the pitching. I almost wanted to give myself an insurance policy, right? So like if I'm going pocket aces, look, if one of them busts, then at least I have a next one up. I was trying to grab like 3 pitchers in my first 5 picks. So I was really aggressive on that. And now it seems like maybe I'm going too far the other way, but I'm looking at maybe grabbing 3 or 4 hitters in my first 5 or 6 picks. Is that something you are thinking about doing yourself?
Well, that coincides with the perceived depth at starting pitching too. If you're more comfortable with the middle and back end of that pool, you're going to feel more inclined to push it a little bit. Again, I think as things shape up more with rotations, the reason we see a shift, it's not just that the NFBC values pitching so much more. I also think there's a stability indicator that we have once we get into the spring, where we know what rotations are going to be. Then you can kind of be more confident in pitching. Did the guy that you like make the team? Okay, you can move him up 60 picks if you liked him that much, depending on where he is. 100 picks if making the team was the big thing. So I think that's part of it too. I've been kind of mixed. I've done a couple drafts. I did the one in Arizona, and I'm in a best ball one right now, which you do draft a bit differently there in best ball. You can take more volatility, obviously, because you're only going to get the good of a pitcher, and pitching is kind of pushed down there. But I had one pitcher through 6 rounds, with Betts, Bogarts, Starling Marte, Yasmani Grandal, and Randy Arozarena.
Interesting. All right. Well, what we're gonna do now? Well,
and then I got Webb and Lynn. That's a 12-teamer though. That's very important to mention.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll get into some ADP battles, some standouts. We'll do that next here on Fantasy Baseball Today. All right, so let's do it. ADP battles and some standouts. A lot of these I crowdsourced on Twitter and our Fantasy Baseball Today Facebook group. And we're going to start up top. We got this one from Ryan on Twitter, and he asked about Mike Trout at pick 15.9 versus Freddie Freeman at 18.7. And he says, quote, with Trout most likely not stealing and injury prone, aren't we hoping that he has a Freddie season best case scenario? And Mike Trout, I've referenced this before as well. Since the start of 2017, Trout has missed 33% of his games to injury. Obviously, a lot of that was due to last season where, I think he only played like 36 games or whatever it was. Even if you take out last year, he's missed 19% of his games from 2017 through 2020. So that's not nothing. And now he's 30 years old. So I think he's still going to be really good when he's on the field. I think you have to factor that in some, a little bit at least for Trout. Freeman, I mean, he's rock solid. 295 plus in 6 straight seasons, 30 plus homers, great counting stats. He's going to chip in 6 to 8 steals. I think that, he doesn't have the power upside of a Mike Trout, but he's also much more dependable. He's missed 7 games over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
That is insane. Like, this guy is an Iron Man, kind of like Whit Merrifield, right? Like, Whit Merrifield just doesn't miss time. It's pretty crazy. But what do you think, Mike Trout versus Freddie Freeman?
It's an interesting pairing there for sure, because, the first base is still kind of interesting. Like, I like a lot of the players, but there's not a lot of that lockdown premium talent there. You've got Vlad, Freeman, Olsen, Goldschmidt, Muncy, Pete Alonso's pretty much there because 40 homers with good runs and ribbies like that'll do it. But then it really starts to find a huge cluster of sameness. So getting Freeman there, like we usually think of first base as deep, and it is in terms of usefulness, but you're still getting a cut above when you get Freddie Freeman. Yeah. Then with Trout, like the trepidation is understood completely based on the health that we've seen. The thing for me though is I don't believe he's done having healthy seasons, and I still think a healthy Trout is going to be better than Freeman. Like when he's played, he's still just been so elite. 1090 OPS in the 36 games he did play with 8 homers, 2 steals. I still think that a healthy Trout will run double digits. I mean, he had 11 in 134 games in 2019. Again, if he gets back to a 150 game season, which I believe, I still think he'll have at least one. I know it'll be 30 this year. I think it will at least one more 150 game season, because it's a matter of getting fully healthy. And then once he is, we'll see if he can stay healthy. I don't know. He is accumulating injuries, but I'm still leaning toward Trout. I kind of have them right there. I think they make an interesting turn if you're at pick like 15 and take an open Trout Freeman. I think that'd be a really cool start. I would like that. Now, a lot of people would say your speed is challenged there because, again, Trout, what are you betting on? 15 max right now, unless he just spikes a crazy season out of nowhere. And Freeman's a chip in. You need some speed. I don't think you have to draft speed in the first 2 rounds or else you're dead, but you can't. You then have to use the next 2 picks to get some speed contributions. I do think that you can't wait too long after that if you don't use your first 2 picks on some measure of speed.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think I'm still going to take Mike Trout. I look, when he's on the field, like if he manages to stay healthy for 150 games, I still believe that his upside is higher than Freddie Freeman's. You're going to get 300 plus batting average. Again, you're going to get more power. It's going to be 40 plus home runs. Counting stats will still be really good. Even if it's only 8 to 10 steals for Mike Trout, that's the max that you're going to get from Freddie Freeman as well. And look, if we're talking roto, you need 5 outfielders, obviously, too. So let's not forget about filling those spots. You're right about first base. Like it's definitely not a great position, or it's not as of now, not looking like a great position. But yeah, I still think I lean Mike Trout. Do you put any stock into the strikeouts and ground ball rate way up for Trout this year, or is that just like small sample size noise?
It's too small, and I think we learned a valuable lesson. One we should have known. We've known since the like Moneyball age of like small sample size, but we learned how much we overrated the 2020 season.
Right.
Just because it was called a season and how little it really meant. So he basically played another one of those 36 games. So he was great. There was some good, some bad. So much of it would have smoothed out. You can't take much from it except for the fact that he was still great. I think you can still at least appreciate that and say he is still one of the most talented players in the game. And what you're trying to bet on is some health, and that can be scary because he hasn't been healthy. I'm not suggesting otherwise. I'm still willing to take that lottery ticket though, even with a first round pick or second round pick, and hope that I can get that full season, because I know whatever I do get from him, seemingly going to be very good. And then if I have to work around replacing him, if he plays 130 games again, I'm still pretty happy with that. Like if he repeats 2019, I mean, of course, that's insane. 45 and 11 in 134 games. He didn't even need a full season. That's how insane he is. He's putting up full seasons of work in 18 and 19. Everyone talks about what he missed. They don't talk about what he did. Like he was still amazing.
Definitely was. Let's take a look at some early third baseman. Rafael Devers at 19.4 versus Manny Machado at 26.9. Devers this past season, awesome year, 279 batting average, 38 homers, finished as the number 12 overall player. He's now finished 12th overall in the top 12 overall in 2 of the last 3 seasons. And the StatCast numbers bear that out. I mean, he was 89th percentile or better in barrel rate, average exit velocity, XBA, X-slug. Devers is awesome. Just really not going to give you much speed. That's the only difference here. Machado, a little underwhelming with the power, only 28 home runs. The home run to fly ball takes a step back, probably related somewhat to the ball, I would imagine. But someone who underperformed his expected numbers. So 290 XBA, 517 X-slug tells us, all right, maybe there could be some bounce back regression here for Manny Machado. What do you think, Devers versus Machado?
I'll probably just take the cheaper of the two. I think I've had a little bit of a blind spot on Machado and just kind of underappreciated him a bit. But I think that's a perfectly fair price for him. It's not like the market is super out. You pay for just kind of a steady force that you can put in your lineup. That talk about another iron horse there. Machado comes to play. He's gonna be 29, still on the right side of 30. And there is still that kind of double-digit speed upside there that I think pretty much covers the gap between them. Like Devers probably has more pop. I mean, we saw the 38 this year. Like we've seen what he can do now, back to back or 2 straight 30 plus seasons for full seasons, right? Again, throw 2020 off to the side. He's gone 32 and 38 the last 2 years. So he gets the power advantage, but I will trade those 10 homers for the 8 to 10 extra steals. To be honest, those are going to be more valuable to me easily.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, that's basically what you have to weigh. I think we probably get a similar batting average, 275 to 285, somewhere in that range for both of these guys. Then you get more pop from Devers, probably get more counting stats from Devers too. Maybe the Padres' entire lineup can bounce back. I mean, Tatis was awesome, but everyone else, it seems like they need to get back on track there. But yeah, you're definitely going to get more speed from Manny Machado. I think
they put, sorry, real quick. I was just going to say they played the exact same number of games since 2019, 369. So you can really compare them with a huge sample pretty easily. Devers has 5 more homers, 45 more ribbies or runs, 50 more ribbies almost. So you're right. The counting stats are a lot better there, but 10 more steals over 2+ years.
Yeah, it's close, man. I mean,
it is close.
You don't want to underestimate those counting stats, right? Because
no,
that adds up. So if Devers is giving you, 210, 220 plus runs in RBI, I mean, that matters. That matters. So I think I still lean with Devers, but man, like he's just not really part of the way that I usually build roto teams.
Is it because he doesn't have the speed and you got to take him a second?
Yeah, it's just like if I'm using a second or third round pick on someone, I want at least 10 steals, I would say. So
I hear you. I mean, but he's so devastating. I mean,
yeah, he really is.
And don't forget, he hit 311 in 2019. That's in his skill set for Devers to hit even higher, which Machado has had some years in the 290s, but and he had 304 in the 2 months, but that's what he does. Like that's perfect for him in 2020 to show 304 because he can do that for 2 months. To hit 278, you do have 2 months that you hit 304. Like that's pretty obvious. So I'm actually leaning toward Devers a little bit more comfortably too, as opposed to just the cheaper one. I think I think I can get behind that, especially if I get big speed. What if you get like Trey Turner in the first,
Yeah. I mean,
or Jose Ramirez?
yeah, that definitely would imagine starting with two third basemen, right? Just snag
Oh
them.
my God. Yeah. I didn't even realize that. That'd be a little
No,
silly.
but I mean,
Well,
it's not a bad strategy the way that like third base is like shaping up this year, right? So
exactly. And I did it with shortstops. I took two shortstops like that and filled the middle. I think too often we get too precious about our corner and middle and utility. Um, like surely you can adjust. Like the reason we keep them open is like for draft flexibility to be like, oh, maybe I can find a steal later and I can put him at middle. Just draft the best players. It's a spot like any other. I think it gets treated a little bit on a weird pedestal that can make people make draft mistakes. So yeah, I actually think the two third baseman. I don't think that's a terrible move.
all right, yeah, I think we solidified it. I'm gonna go Rafael Devers. I am gonna rank him ahead of Manny Machado, but look, I getting Machado, that's a perfectly fine constellation.
Mhm.
And like at the way things are playing up right now, if I'm setting up like a KDS or I have my pick at where I want to draft, I want a top 5 pick, and then coming around, like I don't know if Devers will make it back in the second, but I'd be perfectly fine, taking Machado and then maybe my first pitcher in the third round, something like that. It's
Absolutely.
it's Thanksgiving week. Let's start up at the top. I mean, it's the big ones right here. It's turkey or
Mhm.
ham. Sporer, which way are we going? You a turkey or ham?
Turkey.
Look, you could take both.
Nah, turkey all day, man. I'm not even that much for ham, to be honest. Sometimes I'll have it. I've had good ham before, like where it's a bit better, but most of the time it's pretty C plus. Whereas I think turkey can range. It can be bad. If a dry turkey, you're chomping on that, getting it stuck in your throat, man. You're like, I'm dying over here. But with ham, you don't put gravy on it. I don't. I think that's weird. But with turkey, you can, and that can kind of fix it. So I prefer turkey. Dark meat probably better too.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you, man. I like both of them. I'm gonna take ham.
Okay.
Adam Azer and I were talking. We were doing a football stream earlier on Sunday this week, and me and him were both team ham. We were going up against Chris Towers, and Chris was big on turkey. I like both of them. I hear what you're saying. I think the gravy, you get on top of the turkey, doesn't make as much sense on the ham, but
Yeah.
I think we gotta. I'll make some arrangements, man. I'm gonna have you over for Thanksgiving because the way that my parents make ham, it's like there's just like this brown sugar, like maple glaze on the outside of the
See,
ham, and it is awesome.
I'm in for that. Like I said, I've had good ham. What you would consider good. Definitely not just some run of the mill. And I've had run of the mill turkey too. I'm just saying that's kind of what I was judging off of. What's the lowest tier I would take? And like run of the mill turkey versus run of the mill ham, that I'm going with the turkey. So it's a more stable floor for me. Maybe ham has a little bit of a higher upside, especially the way your parents make it. So I'll have to find out. That's the only way to judge that is to find out.
I like this. We're bringing the fantasy terminology into our turkey versus ham, so that's great. Let's get back into fantasy baseball, and somebody submitted Tim Anderson versus Wander Franco. Now I appreciate the submission, but I'm going to tweak this one a little bit because I thought Wander Franco at 47.7 versus Francisco Lindor was a little bit more interesting to me. So that's what we're going to go with. Francisco Lindor's at 53.2. He's going about 5-6 picks after Wander Franco right now. And Wander was great. Look, first season, 288, 7 homers, 53 runs scored in 70 games. He only had 2 steals. He had that 43 game on base streak. Maybe someone who plays up better in a points league. Obviously, great OBP. He's going to walk a lot, has awesome plate discipline. Disappointing season from Francisco Lindor, no doubt about it. Still gave us 20 homers, 10 steals in 125 games. So gives you power, gives you a little bit of speed. Something clicked for him in September. It's a small sample. I don't want to hold on to that too much, but in September for Lindor, 257 batting average, 9 homers, and 895 OPS gives you a glimmer of hope going into the next season. He attempted 2 steals. He got caught stealing on both of them. So, Paul, what are you thinking here? We're going Wander Franco versus Francisco Lindor.
I think Franco is ready. Like he has arrived. I don't really have much concern about him being a productive fantasy asset. I don't think he's going to be at his best right away next year. I think we'll probably look at like a 2023, 2024 going to be the best of Wander Franco when he fully settles in. But I think he's ready to go right away. We saw what he could do this year. The eye and the ability at the dish to kind of get on base, that can really help alleviate slumps too. So you're not, going 3 weeks without even touching first base. You're still getting on, maybe scoring, contributing to the team type of deal, because he will hit some slumps and some teams will figure him out for periods of time and then he'll adjust. That said, as much as I like him, I think you gotta go Lindor here, just because first off, he's cheaper right now. And of course they're close. That means sometimes one's going ahead of the other. But we've seen it so much with Lindor. And that was his first year in New York. And I kind of have, a little bit of like a first year rule where I'm not so interested to get those guys first year, huge new place with a fat deal. Now he was traded there and then signed. It works very similarly though. Obviously he's set up to be the franchise guy, 10 years, 341 million. I give him a year to kind of figure it out. I think it's going to be very much Carlos Beltran-esque, where he's going to get back on track. And I think he got a chance to be like a fantasy league winner because he's a guy that you get. What did you say his ADP was? It's at 53, and he plays like the number 3 player. Like, gets back to that insane level that we've seen before. I really think that's possible for Lindor. And so I would take him over Wander for sure.
Oh man, this is so close. I came into this thinking that I was pretty set on Wander Franco. Like, I'm going to have him ranked higher. I think the batting average is going to be better for Wander Franco. I just don't know where the power and speed is going to be for him right away. So I think you're right about that we're not going to see the best of Wander Franco yet. That being said, like, I didn't really believe in Bo Bichette as a second round pick or whatever he was last year. And True. He goes out and has this monster season. So can we see Wander Franco do that? I think it's within his range of outcomes. I just really don't know how much he's going to run. So that's the biggest thing for me. I thought we were going to get a better discount on Lindor. I honestly thought we were. And
I know.
I was going to be excited to draft him too. Like, I just wish, maybe he was going to like a round later. I guess it makes sense, right? Because he's still going to project for at least 25 homers, I would say, 12 to 15 steals. That's a solid player. And
9 homers in a month is huge. Like, that stands out. That's lasting, I think.
Yeah, and if the Mets lineup bounces back too, like the counting stats should be there too. I think I just kind of talked myself into Francisco Lindor, but man, that is close. I can't really fault anyone there. I'm gonna go with Francisco Lindor right there with you as well. Sandy Alcantara, I want to talk about him. He's on the rise. He's an early 4th round pick in 12 teamers. He's a late 3rd round pick in 15 teamers as of now. I wanted to ask you about 3 pitchers that are going in a row right now: Sandy Alcantara, Chris Sale, and Aaron Nola. So Chris Sale, we saw him come back from Tommy John. Really the only one between him, Severino, and Syndergaard comes back and makes 9 starts, much more than those others. 3.16 ERA, 134 whip. The hits were up. The BABIP was up. He was very good. Swinging strike rate, not where it's been at in years past with him. Sandy was just like down the stretch. His final 13 starts, he had a 15% swinging strike rate. That was 4th among qualified starting pitchers. Like, the guy, I feel like he's just ready. Like, the changeup usage is up, just like progressing as a pitcher all across the board. It seems like everything's there for him. Aaron Nola is just like, how can you be that unlucky for an entire season, right? Like, 4.63 ERA, everything underneath the underlying numbers, every ERA indicator is sub 3.5. And it was really just the home runs. I mean, the fact that his ground ball rate was the lowest it's been of his career. So as a result, gives up more fly balls, a few more home runs, really just doomed Aaron Nola here. So who are you taking to that group? Sandy, Chris Sale, Aaron Nola?
Sandy's my guy. I got him the highest of the 3. You talk about somebody you wish you had a better discount on. I wish more people would sleep on Nola, but it's obvious, right? It's right there. Like, it's not a buy low. It's not a sleeper. It's nothing like that. Everyone is fully in on Aaron Nola because we all see the very obvious underlying numbers. And so you have to pay full market price, but that's fine. You shouldn't be buying solely off of last year anyway. And this is just a good lesson and yet people will say, oh, there's not enough of a discount, I won't buy him. It's like, but you are going to buy him because you're valuing him as a mid-3s ERA guy anyway. So just because the discount's been taken, he's now just where he belongs, you can still buy him. So I'm right there with the whole trio in terms of willing to pay their market price. But I do have it Alcantara, Sale, Nola.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have Sandy. I haven't done my rankings yet. I'm looking at ADP. Scott has his rankings out right now. I believe he has Sandy ranked the highest of the 3 as well. But yeah, I think everything is just there for him too. Like, he gives you so much volume too. He was one of 4 starting pitchers with 200 plus innings this past season, talking about an extension right now with the Miami Marlins. So stays in that great ballpark, has the familiarity there. And again, he's only getting better and better, throws extremely hard, strikeouts up, walks down. everything that you want to see. So it's a big price tag, but I'm right there on Sandy Alcantara. He's going to be a target for me in that third round. I've seen, look, if you start two hitters and you get one of Sandy or Giolito or Nola in the third round as your first pitcher, I'm fine with that. I think I feel all right with that, man. And then like you come back in rounds 5, 6, 7, you could take, I have ADP up right here. Like if you get a Logan Webb or a Jack Flaherty as your SP2, or even if you wait till the 6th round, you get like Luis Castillo on a bounce back. The whip is always going to be bad. I think we know that at this point. But you get Castillo as your SP2 or Charlie Morton as your SP2, come back with like a hype guy a little bit later on, like a Shane McClanahan as one of your top 3 starting pitchers. I feel good with that, man. Like, I don't know. What are you thinking?
That's right where I'm at. I mean, I really feel comfortable with that. I'm okay not necessarily forcing somebody in the first 2 rounds if it doesn't fit. Now, I will take a picture there, but again, it's something where I think kind of last year I really wanted to have one, at least in like the first 3 rounds. Now I can get to the 4th round without having a starter and thinking, oh no, I'm in deep trouble. I think there's a path there to where your pitching feels fine by plucking out of that tier a few times.
All right, Thanksgiving, we're back. Here we go. We've got side dish edition right here. A battle, okay. Green bean casserole, very popular on Thanksgiving, versus a sweet potato casserole versus stuffing. Which one you got?
I'm gonna go stuffing. And again, that's another thing that needs to be made well, but I think has a decent floor. To where it's hard to make it terribly, I guess, or maybe I just haven't had terrible stuffing, but I've had really, really good stuffing, and I really like it. I've had fine casseroles, but I'm not a huge casserole guy, so stuffing for me.
I'm with you, man. We are simpatico. Let's go. Stuffing, I agree. Like, if it's made right, it can be awesome. I think green bean casserole is very good as well. Sweet potato casserole, I mean, you get a little crazy. People put, like, marshmallows on top of their sweet potato. It's just like, all right, I get it. Like, that I'm sure it tastes amazing.
Makes it more appealing, yes.
Yes, but it's just like at that point, it's a dessert, isn't it? Like, I don't know.
That's what I always felt. I'm like, why are we eating this with everything else? That feels problematic.
Yeah, and look, maybe it's the 5-year-old within. Like,
we see marshmallows and we're like, yes, dessert.
No, I was like, I like mac and cheese.
That was going to be my pick there.
If we get mac and cheese on Thanksgiving, like that's awesome. Whatever. Like, give me mac and cheese. The next, like, give me chicken fingers. Yes, I eat like a 5-year-old. It's perfectly fine.
Yeah,
let's do it.
I'll never grow out of liking mac and cheese. I don't, if that makes me a child for life, I'm signing up for that. I mean, I'm at least eating Annie's. I eat adult mac and cheese. So come on, that's something.
All right, this one isn't a battle, but we got this from Mark Farrell. Farrell. We'll go Farrell. On Facebook. He says, I keep hearing third base is thin, but is it? Chris Bryant, Alex Bregman, and Anthony Rendon in the 92 to 116 range, and that's round 8 to 10. Then Ke'Bryan Hayes, Yoan Moncada, or Justin Turner in the 13 to 14 rounds. I'd consider first base to be thin. So what do you think about this statement here about third base?
I hear that. But I mean, I think that second group in particular has a lot of warts. Ke'Bryan Hayes hasn't done it. Yoan Moncada, I guess, you kind of rallied to the finish line. I got to be honest. When I know we're going to talk about MLB The Show later, but when I saw he got a finest card, I was like, what? They moved him down to a bronze. How did he get a finest card? But then I looked and he had a pretty good season from like a baseball standpoint, thanks in large part to a 375 on base. But he wasn't like 14 homers and 61 ribbies and a 263 average. That's what you're psyched about getting at third base. That's tough. And Turner, he's a guy who could age pretty quickly wherein it could start to go. He was still good last year. I absolutely believe that. But again, 37. There is a way that I think there's a viable strategy of just saying like no 35 plus guys on my teams ever, just because of the bust rate. And you won't go broke doing that. You'll avoid guys like this. That doesn't mean everyone will be bad. It just means that overall, that'll be a winning bet if you have like a certain ADP range. Obviously, the later you get, the more you can take that gamble. But he'll be 37. He has a litany of injuries under his belt. He did play 151 games. So I know I'm sounding a little wishy-washy on Turner. I like him, but I don't know if I want him to be my guy at third. I think you're giving something back to the rest of the pool if he's your starting third baseman. So the depth isn't just do I like a guy? But you have to understand what you're giving back too. Yes, you're going to take him later, so you're going to be positioned well at other positions. But I don't know if you're gaining enough to make Justin Turner your starting third baseman.
Yeah. Look, it's definitely a weak position. There's no doubt about it. We have one third baseman in the first round. We have Devers and Machado. If we're looking at a 15-teamer, they both go in the second round. And then, I mean, we wait a little bit. We have Mondesi, which he will have third base eligibility. But,
Yeah.
I mean, look, that's if you want to do the Mondesi thing, perfect. That's all
I do the Mondesi thing sometimes.
Austin Riley, I like the price tag there. Look, the ones that he asked about, like, yeah, I think Bregman at 92, like that's a fair price tag.
Yeah.
Rendon, I know he burned a lot of people. I had him on a lot of teams last year.
Same. I love him. I can't.
We're getting him at 116. I'm totally fine. Like, he's probably not going to hit for a lot of power anymore, but if he hits 280 plus with 25 homers in that Angels lineup, like.
That's the thing. Yeah. If the batting average with like 25 over, he could drive in 100 too, even with lower power, because Trout and Ohtani on base ahead of him, just like constantly. Obviously if things play to fruition. But yeah. And obviously he needs to stay healthy, but he missed this season, basically 58 games, but he played in the 2 months. Not like he missed anything in the 2-month season. 146, 136, 147. That's where he lives. That's why he is the price that he is, because Rendon doesn't play a full season. But so this is really the first season that I should say that he's burned anybody. I'm not going to quit him yet. He's 32. He has skills that should age well. And if Rendon is healthy, he'll be good. We'll know if he's healthy, if he's performing the way he did last year in the 58 games. We'll know that he's probably still battling something, but a healthy Rendon is going to crush.
Yeah, I'm still right there with you. Rendon's going to be a target of mine. Mark Farrell also had a follow-up. He says you should ask Justin Mason who this year's Cedric Mullins will be. So on a future podcast, if you want to bring that up with Justin,
it's been discussed quite a bit. I don't know that he's found one yet.
Okay.
I don't think he's trying to make it a thing. I encourage him to actually make it a thing though.
Yeah.
Because I mean, hello, marketing. Like, Vlad Sedler does this year's Christian Yelich. Like,
right.
Hello, this is a thing that you can have that can be your thing. This year's Cedric Mullins. And what if he hits on like 2 in a row? Then it becomes a huge thing. So I think he's crazy not to embrace it. I might steal it. I'm telling you right now, Frank. I hope Justin doesn't listen to this. I might just steal it, and I might gaslight everybody into believing that I said it last year, that I was the Cedric Mullins guy, and completely take it away. Because if you're going to be handed something cool like this, a little thing that you can have annually, and you don't want it, finders keepers. Very clearly finders keepers.
You guys pod together. I mean, look, you're close enough to this point, right? Like,
that's what I'm saying. And so going back to when I called Cedric Mullins last year, Frank, that was a call. It started one stormy night. I was cooped. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, as far as who he put, did you see Lane Thomas there? That's an interesting name. Lane Thomas is starting to get some buzz.
I actually threw that one in there. That wasn't.
Oh, okay. Pardon me. I thought that was him. So you threw Lane Thomas. I want to let you talk about him then instead of me setting him up, because I'm with you that there's some intrigue here. There really is, man. First off, I know Cardinals fans are probably bugging again. Another guy who could potentially bust out after leaving the Cards, but all their years of devil magic, like Alan Craig and freaking Matt Carpenter and bunch of different guys. There's more than that, but I can't think of them right now. They can stand to lose a couple of these, but Lane Thomas might be that dude. He looked really sharp in that 206 plate appearances with the Nats. That's just a small sample, but it shows something to build on. And he's 26. He should get an opportunity at a full-time job. I think people are kind of sleeping on Lane Thomas. So I did just set him up after saying you should. So I'm an idiot, but go ahead and talk about him now.
Hey, look, you said everything that I needed to, right? He played 45 games with the Nationals. And I think what's so eerily similar to Cedric Mullins, right, is I've heard Justin talk about it before. And he said, well, if you followed him the year prior, you saw that he was leading off towards the end of the season for the Baltimore Orioles, and it was the same thing for Lane Thomas with the Washington Nationals. He was leading off towards the end of the season. They clearly have some confidence in the guy. Like, if he performs well early, like he's going to be given every opportunity to lead off once again for this team. And I don't think the Nationals are going to be great, but like whenever you have Juan Soto hitting behind you, that you're probably going to have a decent amount of run scoring opportunities.
And he gets on base.
Maybe not as good as like Cedric Mullins, because obviously the guy was ridiculous. He went 30
is like bananas. Yeah.
this is very similar to Tommy Pham, in my opinion, right? So like Pham was awesome for the Cardinals. Then he was good for the Rays. He was all right for the Padres too. And it's like
health was the only thing that kept him from the Padres, to be
very,
honest.
very similar like skill sets here. Walks a decent amount, makes good contact, has some power, has some speed. I think it's like his ADP right now is 280 or something like that. Like
I like Lane Thomas a lot.
I need to jump in a draft. Like
I don't know if you know the Siege on Twitter, CJ Kaltenbeck, I believe is his name.
Yes.
I remember him, I think 19 or 20 was talking up Lane Thomas. Him and somebody in my Twitch chat who I don't remember. This was a long time ago and I just randomly remember it. Two people that I heard talking up Lane Thomas before this year at all, before anything, like just keep your thoughts on Lane Thomas as an outfielder for the Cardinals. But obviously they have such a cluster that they couldn't really find him time. Like this one was a necessity to get rid of. Like I understand people with the Luke Voigt and the Randy Arozarena and who's the other one? Wasn't there 3 guys that they lost recently that were just killing it? But like, where's Lane Thomas going to play when you have O'Neill, Bader, and Carlson? There was no spot for him. But they might have found something here for the Nationals.
Yep. So that's my early pick. But again, like I've not done enough baseball research yet. So we're already at the hour mark here. We usually keep these to about an hour, but look, it's our only podcast of the week. So we'll go a little bit longer here. We've got a few more ADPs that we want to talk about, a few that Sporer provided himself. So the next one that we're going to talk about, I kind of wish Scott was here because I don't know how you feel about this player, but if you don't like him, it would have been awesome to see you guys go at it. So Ranger Suarez has an ADP of 146.
Oh, he's a big Ranger guy.
He's a big Ranger guy. Like Scott has him at SP 33. He loves him. He has him ranked ahead of like Shane McClanahan. He is all over Ranger Suarez. 12 starts for Suarez this past season. Mind you, I didn't really realize this until Nick Pollock brought it up on this podcast.
Yeah, I know.
Really favorable schedule for Ranger Suarez down the stretch. 1.51 ERA, 108 WHIP, 57% ground ball rate, tick over 11% swinging strike rate. He's basically sinker, four seam, and changeup. Mixes in a slider 8% of the time. I like Ranger Suarez. I don't inside my top 40 starting pitchers like Ranger Suarez. So where are you at ADP 146?
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate him, but that price is steep. And I think I get it because here's the thing. Even people who look under the hood, what are they going to see? Nothing but greatness. The season was like, it's infallible in terms of the profile statistically. So even people who do that second level, third level analysis are going to see, wow, this was crazy. And some people are going to run into exactly what Nick talked about with the schedule and be like, okay, I'll take a little bit off for that. But we're talking about a 136 ERA and a 1 WHIP in 106 innings. Okay, so the schedule gets tougher. And is it the 351 Sierra that we posted or that he posted with like a 115 to 119 WHIP? I'm fine with that. I think the fact that he also showed the volume, like he was going deep into games, 9 inning, he had a shutout. He had a bunch of 6-inning games. I don't see any reason that he can't have like a huge volume next year too. If he stays healthy, I think he can be like a 175 type of guy. I don't know. The price is the problem for me right now because that's full price. I need everything to come through to pay for him at that price. Where I thought he was going to be, I thought I was going to be a Ranger Suarez guy. Turns out I'm a little bit more tepid about it because of the guys he's going around and some of the ones that I like a good bit later than him too. Like I'm still a huge Jose Urquidy guy and he threw 106. He's at pick 168.
Yeah, I was thinking just looking at ADP right now, 175 probably would have been a fair range for Suarez. If he was going right where Erod was going, again, like that's, 175.1 for Erod. I think that would make a lot of sense for Suarez. He's going ahead of Marcus Stroman. He kind of does a lot of what Stroman does, and Stroman's done it for longer, right? So that doesn't really add up for me. I like Ranger Suarez the player, but I agree with you. He should probably be, I would say 25 to 30 picks lower than he's right now.
He's got a 97 min pick. So again, I wonder if maybe a couple min picks are really holding that number up. He's as low as 183. So that's a pretty wide range, especially in comparison to the guys around him. You see a few spikes. You see a Clayton Kershaw went 68, somebody being maybe a bit overconfident there. Adam Wainwright at 34 might have been drafting off of like a 2021 Q or something because he was really good, but obviously you cannot do that. That's insane. But otherwise, the guys are mostly going around pick 110 to 120 there at the front end of their average. So if that's where his front end drops down to, then he'll probably be somebody that dips down Ranger Suarez will. But again, I think with these stats, it's hard for people to get off of Ranger Suarez.
Yep. Thanksgiving pies. We haven't talked about any dessert yet. So I don't know if you're big on pie. And some people don't like pie, which I like. There's better desserts than pie. I recognize that. That's fine. But pie's fine.
Sure.
Pumpkin pie versus apple pie versus pecan pie. Where are you going?
Pumpkin all day. I absolutely love pumpkin pie. It's amazing. I'm looking for a picture to show you what I did one time with a pumpkin pie, which is a terrible setup because that makes it sound like it's a picture you definitely don't want to see. But I promise you do. I promise. But I love pumpkin pie. I don't like the others that much, but I really do love pumpkin pie. That's definitely my favorite. And I put like 4 pounds of Cool Whip on it, which is definitely too much, but you know.
Yeah. I'm with you. I would take pumpkin pie. I like apple pie. What do we got going on here? Did you make it inside of a pumpkin?
No, sorry. I know it's like reflecting weirdly. I cut out the middle for my piece.
Oh, okay.
And made that my piece like a giant jerk. And I was very proud of myself. I thought it was like the funniest thing ever. My sister, brother-in-law, my girlfriend, they didn't think it was as funny, but I thought it was hilarious because I'm an idiot. I'm absolutely an idiot. But a pumpkin pie for me. Which one's your favorite?
Yeah, I like pumpkin pie as well. I do like apple pie, but I'll say pumpkin pie ahead of it. Pecan pie, get out of here.
That's a hard pass for me.
Yeah, get pecan pie out of here. It's not really a Thanksgiving pie, but chocolate cream pie is like far and away my favorite. So.
That is really good.
All right, we've got a few more position battles here, ADP battles rather, and they were provided by Sporer. So let's jump right in. Battle of the Shanes. We have Shane McClanahan at pick 99, and we have Shane Baz at pick 126. Play on the same team. They're both awesome. It sucks that you might have to choose between them, but McClanahan, 3.43 ERA, 20% K minus walk is just like ridiculous.
So
in your 15% swinging strike rate, he has legitimately 4 pitches. And Seamer projects him for 159 innings. Shane Baz also has 4 pitches, only uses change of about 6% of the time. Only made 3 starts, 16% swinging strike rate. Watch him against my Yankees. The guy was ridiculous. Lights out. I think both these guys are awesome. The difference, Seamer projects Shane Baz for 136 innings. So, about 20, 25 less. So who do you like between these at their respective costs?
Yeah, and that's why I'm going to go with McClanahan. I'm going to pay the premium a little bit there, 99 versus 126, not too much. You're drafting these two around the same area. If one of them goes and you pick soon and you really want one, you need to take that guy right there. You push it any further, you run that risk because obviously with averages being 99, 126, they go a ton in that different range. But with McClanahan, I do agree with Steamer on the more reliable innings count. We know that Tampa Bay doesn't mess around with that stuff in terms of the fact that they will take a guy out for a period of time, put him in the bullpen, park him in AAA, things like that. He's coming off of Baz is coming off of 79 innings this year. He had 81 back in 2019. He's only going to be 23. Obviously, 2020 was a total washout. He probably threw some innings at the training site. So I don't think that they're going to ramp him up too crazily. I think McClanahan can eclipse him by 30, 50 innings, perhaps, with his season total. So that's why I got to go with him. But I do like Baz. Just plan for 125 innings, but they could be so great that it's worth the price. But you just plan for that. Maybe you take your first reserve starter much earlier because he's a guy that you expect to bridge the gap with Baz. Like if you plan for things and you can afford to take these players at their respective price, if you still really like them.
Yeah, and maybe you select Baz with an innings eater in tandem with him.
Yeah,
someone that provides more reliable innings. Someone like Marcus Stroman. We've already mentioned the name, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I think he's going to be, pretty reliable in terms of his innings. So that's something that can make a lot of sense. I'm still taking Shane McClanahan at his cost. Another one where I wish people weren't as in on him as they are, but like we're all looking at the same things, and we all see that it seems pretty obvious that Shane McClanahan is going to be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
We're going to wrap up here with one more pitcher related. Justin Verlander at pick 154 versus Clayton Kershaw at 156. So Verlander is going to be 18 months removed from Tommy John surgery when the season begins. Last time we saw him in a full season was 2019. He finished as the number one overall player in 5x5 Roto, not just like pitcher, the number one overall player. That's how good he was. Clayton Kershaw, really, really good when he was healthy this past season, but where is the health? I think that's something we have to find out more about in the offseason. The Dodgers did not give him the qualifying offer, which is probably going to scare some people away. And yeah, I think for good reason. We'll see where he signs. He's a free agent. Talk about the Texas Rangers. I know he's from Texas, so that could make some sense. But we'll see ultimately where he winds up. And I'm interested to see where Verlander's ADP goes from here, because I think now that he re-signs with Houston, the fact that he has familiarity there, the fact that they are the team that closely watches his rehab, they know how healthy he is. I think Verlander is going to start to shoot up here. So what do you think between these two?
Yeah, absolutely. Verlander is who I'm taking, and I totally agree that the price is going to go up. I mean, I'm a huge Justin Verlander fan, being a Detroit Tigers fan. Love what he did with Houston. By the way, this highlight, he kind of shows the risk of taking Morton, right? It could be a 6-inning season like that, and that can happen with any pitcher. I'm saying the risk of that is higher, and the older you get, that you just pop and you have to miss a year. Now he's going to come back. What's he going to be? Based on what we've seen, we should expect him to be pretty good. He's a unicorn, right? We talk about certain guys that are unicorns. Justin talks about how Max Scherzer is. Justin Verlander is as well. Now, I understand the unicorn is supposed to be a single entity, but, you get a handful of unicorns in the pitching landscape. Do you want to take on that risk? I think we probably delude ourselves a bit into thinking that the risk that he busts is significantly higher than the risk that anybody busts. But the truth of the matter is that the difference isn't that high, or isn't that much. The fact that he's older is why there's that enhanced risk. But otherwise, I think that's fine. I'm getting a discount on Verlander. He can be a top 5 starter again. So the fact that even when he jumps up, say he jumps up to like pick 110, 100, that's going to put him around pitcher 42, 49, throw in 10 closers. You're talking just outside the top 30. I'm okay with that for Verlander. I'm ready to pay that. With Kershaw, I'm not completely out on him. I think I'd pay that price. If it starts to go up, I think then I start to push away from Kershaw at that point.
Yeah, I could see it happening where if Verlander's healthy and he shows us something in spring training, I mean,
oh yeah,
we're talking he shoots all the way
to
up.
like the second round.
Yeah, like I'm thinking, yeah, I was just gonna say like he's like a top 5 round player, but yeah, we could see it go like even into like the second round, something crazy like that. If he's, if he just looks like Verlander, right? So I know he threw a showcase recently. He had like throwing 97 miles per hour at his fastball. Sounds pretty good. Sounds like Justin Verlander. So we'll see. You need to jump in a draft now. If you want Verlander, we're getting him at the cheapest he is going to go.
Absolutely.
Basically all off season. You probably should have been drafting like 2 weeks ago, but it's perfectly fine. Let's wrap up here with MLB The Show. Obviously, Paul, you do some stuff over on Twitch. We're talking beforehand. I think this whole kind of generation of Twitch is like really interesting too. It's, some parents might not understand, like, why are my kids watching other people playing video games? It's like this whole weird phenomenon. But like, let's be honest, man, growing up, if you went to your friend's house, like there was one friend that would play the game. There was a bunch of people who sat around and watched that friend play the game. Like
exactly.
that was
or
totally
2 at most, right? 2 people are playing, 3 others are waiting to get next. So you're sitting around watching, talking, having a good time, and it's that similar vibe there. And you're shooting the breeze with guys, talking baseball, things like that. So there's people in my community that don't even have a PlayStation or MLB The Show. Like they're just there to hang out and talk baseball because it's a cool place to hang out and just talk sports.
Yep. So look, say I'm just buying MLB The Show today. What do I need to know? How do I get better? Because I feel like that's kind of where I'm at. I will tell you the settings that I play with. There's going to be some people who are listening to this who are like, "What are you talking about?"
Don't worry what they say. You customize it to what you like best.
My current settings: hitting view is strike zone 2.
Okay.
Don't know if that's good or not.
No, that's good.
I'm pure analog. I'm going with the flick.
Okay.
My PCI is off. I can't look, dude.
That's fine.
I can't do the PCI thing. Like I'm trying to focus on
If
moving
it distracts you,
Yeah.
then that's a problem. But you're still moving it though, right?
Well,
Or if
when
you turn it off, I think it's still, if it's invisible, or you're saying you don't use PCI, or you just turned off the visual of it?
I turned it off, I think.
Okay, if you turned it off, then I don't know about pure analog hitting, to be honest. But I can tell you the number one thing. You can finish your settings, but how patient are you? Do you take pitches?
I'm getting better.
That's the key. That's the key. You have to take pitches. And I know, nobody wants to sit down and play a video game to take walks. Actually, there's a lot of fun in taking walks. I don't take a ton. So when I'm patient enough to not swing at everything, I'm like, yes. But the best players are super patient. They don't always take a ton of walks, but they wait for their pitch. Right. You feel pretty confident that you'll get a fastball in every at bat. Because the off-speed stuff is just not that effective. Like, you got to bring some heaters. So if you're waiting for your heater, you got to be getting deep into the counts though. If you're rolling over 2 pitches in every time, people are going to make quick work of you. The confidence in their pitcher is going to get better, so they're only going to kind of have a perpetual state of getting better against you, and you're in for it big time at trying to scratch out a couple of hits and maybe claw a run or two across.
So what are what settings do you use when
so I have strike zone. I use analog hitting, where I move the PCI and then press the button. And then I use the analog pitching. That's not, it's not analog hitting. That's not what that's called, because that's what you use. I'm an idiot. But whatever the PCI one is called, sweet. I don't even know the name of it. I've had the same settings for so many years that I forget. But then I'm not using the new pitching, which I know I should be, because pinpoint is better. They said it's proven it's better. If you master that between all three, if you mastered all three, you will get better results with pinpoint. So that stands to reason that if you're, at 70% on something and 70% on pinpoint, whatever it is, there's an advantage to being better there. I just need to take it under, because I've been afraid of it. But yeah, as far as pitching too, you have to try to pitch like an actual pitcher. You have to try to set guys up, keep them off balance. Don't throw obvious 2-0 fastballs all the time. They're waiting for one. They're expecting one. Sometimes you will throw them, but you're battling your guys. It's chess every at bat. That's what's so fun about playing other people too, is trying to get in their head and predict their pitches and predict where they're thinking you're going to pitch it.
Yeah, for sure. So do you use the meter when you're pitching? I
use the analog. So I bring the stick down and then flick it up.
Okay.
But the pinpoint's the new one where you make, and that's what you and I should have an advantage there as Xbox guys, because the 2K, basically that's what you had to do. You had to make a shape with the analog to throw the pitch. They brought that in this year called pinpoint pitching, and they made it the best one there is. But I've been too lazy to take the time to learn it, so I get impatient every time I start sucking, and I go right back to my comfort zone.
Yeah, I think that I should probably try it out too, right? If you're saying that it kind of lends itself to the Xbox player. So I didn't even try. I just whenever I think it started on the meter, so I was like, all right, I'll pitch with this. So.
Meter's all right. Meter and analog are fine, but they have said explicitly, San Diego Studios, that if you're better at pinpoint, it will give you better results. When you achieve the highest, it delivers better than the other ones on purpose, because there is a higher threshold of skill.
All right. Well, for anyone who plays MLB The Show, I hope that helped you out a little bit. If you're still listening and you don't play MLB The Show, you probably are extremely confused and you have no idea what's going on, but I appreciate you for sticking around regardless. If you want to watch Sporer beat some people in MLB The Show, you can do that on twitch.tv/Sporer. And getting back to fantasy baseball related items, obviously you can find all of his work over at fangraphs.com. You can listen to the Sleeper and the Bus podcast. Follow him on Twitter at Sporer. That's SPORER. Paul, I appreciate you coming on, man. This was a lot of fun. I kept you long. It's pretty late here, but I do appreciate it. Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks so much for having me on, Frank. I had a blast, and I talked too much. That's why it went long. So don't worry about that. I appreciate you sticking with me.
No. Look, I'm famous at this point I make 2-hour rundowns for, podcasts that we're supposed to keep under an hour. And
we would have 3-hour pods easily. I feel like you and I would just get going back. Okay, well, it's been 3.5 hours. We should probably wrap this up.
Yeah. Once again, appreciate you coming on. Everyone go follow him on Twitter. For Paul, I am Frank. Thank you all for listening and watching Fantasy Baseball today. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. Have a happy and healthy holiday, and we will talk to you again next Tuesday. Bye-bye.